Good afternoon. Chuck Morse here from the Morse Force, Monday through Friday, 12 noon. My guest is David Rubin. He's the former mayor of Shiloh in Israel. He is coming to us from Israel. He's also the author of his latest book, which is Trump and the Jews. I want to talk a little bit about that, David. But in the meantime, I want to start with the controversy around the caravans coming in from Mexico and the comparison of those to the Palestinians. To Jewish refugees coming in from Europe during World War II? Obviously an absurd comparison, but would you elaborate a bit on that?
Okay, well actually that slight slip there in saying the Palestinians, that's a separate topic. We could discuss the fraud of the Palestinian so-called refugees, but that we could get to that. First, I think you were referring to this comparison by the new Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from New York, who she's become the darling of the political left in America, and the new Democratic Party. And she said that, well, she made a comparison between the Jewish refugees from Nazi Europe during World War II and the migrant caravan, which it's just an obscene comparison, because the migrant caravan consists of thousands of people from Honduras and perhaps other countries in that area, and they're mostly about 80% young males, and they're coming just because they want to get into America. And some of them have pure motives, some of them have very impure motives, but there certainly is no proof at all that any of them are coming to America to escape persecution, to escape slaughter, to escape any kind of discrimination. So when one makes a comparison to the Jews of Europe who fled Europe because the Nazis, who were fleeing from Nazi concentration camps and death camps, and no one, except some loony fringe, would have even questioned whether they were true asylum seekers. So to make a comparison like that is I can't say it any more simply than obscene.
No, it's a gross insult, and it's completely odious and wrong. And a recent U.S. Census survey indicates that 63% of immigrants in the United States are on welfare, which is costing us a fortune, and that's about 4.5 million families. So, this is not this kind of moral equivalence is really bizarre, and this particular congresswoman has proven to be really ignorant in so many areas anyway. So I don't even know if we should even discuss her, but the fact is she does reflect a certain younger generation American, which is not it's kind of half-baked ideas that go out there and that have to be responded to, because if they're not, they're very dangerous. They're allowed to sit out there.
Right. Well, we have an obligation to point out ignorance, and if that ignorance is based on just pure ignorance and belief in just reciting this mantra of the far left, then perhaps we can understand it, and we can try to educate that person and help her to understand what the real historical facts are. But if it comes from anti-Semitism or any kind of bigotry, then I think it needs to be exposed and stopped in its tracks. So that's why I pointed out, and that's why I'm emphasizing this, because you just can't make a comparison like that if you're an intelligent, educated person who knows the history of America, who knows Jewish history, and who knows the history of the world.
That's right, and I'm glad we're doing that. And I still think that most Americans understand the absurdity of that. David, what is the present situation in Israel with regard to the discovery of these terror tunnels coming in from Lebanon? That to me is at least as troubling as the ongoing war against Israel emanating from Gaza. Can you give us an update on what's going on there?
Well, Gaza has always been a hotbed in the south, to the south of Israel. And yes, a few weeks ago, we were talking mostly about Gaza and the Hamas terrorist organization there and the rockets that they were firing. But everyone in Israel knows that while that may be a big problem for Israel and how it needs to be stopped, the main problem, the main existential threat to Israel comes from Iran and the Iranian proxies. And the Iranian proxies are really all around the world and throughout the Middle East, certainly. But the Hezbollah terrorist organization, which is ensconced in Lebanon and pretty much has made Lebanon their state within a state, and they have 150,000 missiles pointed at Israeli cities as we speak right now, and that needs to be stopped. So that has, they've been building up that infrastructure, that offensive infrastructure in Lebanon for quite a few years now. And what they've been doing recently in the past 3 to 4 years is they have been building tunnels. They learned from Hamas, only they do it better than Hamas because they're more heavily financed by Iran. And they're building terror tunnels underground into Israel, into the Galilee region in the north of Israel. And these are terror tunnels. Simply put, they are terror tunnels. They're designed to smuggle terrorists into Israel to launch terrorist attacks. So Israel has been watching them there. Our intelligence has been focused on that for quite some time now. And finally, the prime minister gave the order that the Israeli army should go in and expose those tunnels and destroy those tunnels. So that's what's happening right now. It's an operation that began about a week ago. It is continuing. It will be continuing most likely for several weeks because we're still operating on the Israeli side of the border. But before long, we're going to be going into Lebanon, underground perhaps, but certainly underground and perhaps overground a little bit too. An order just went out from the Israeli political leadership that the Lebanese who live in those, so the civilians who live above ground from those tunnels should evacuate their homes, which means that the Israeli army is going in full force to blow up those terror tunnels. As usual, Israel's trying to protect the civilians.
Well, God willing, no, there won't be any loss in life generally, but certainly Jewish life, quite frankly, because this is a natural, normal action of self-defense. You have people who are building tunnels for this express purpose of killing as many Jews as possible. You know, they've even said they want to occupy the Galilee, which is, of course, Israel itself. And has the Lebanese government shown any inclination to help Israel in this regard?
Well, at this moment, the Lebanese government, which is basically a figurehead, the Lebanese government doesn't have much power in Lebanon. They're pretty much controlled by Hezbollah. But the Lebanese government has expressed a desire to stay out of the conflict. They're hoping that it won't erupt into a major conflict, which could happen. It's really up to the Hezbollah Islamic terrorist organization. If they choose to make an issue over this and they try to stop Israel from destroying those terror tunnels, then it could turn into a major conflict or even war.
Meanwhile, there is indication that Iran itself is teetering on collapse, thanks to, partially at least thanks to President Trump's cancellation of that very bad treaty that was signed by Obama. And other factors, it looks like the Iranian mullahs may be slipping in terms of holding control over their own country. What do you think is going on there? And do you think there might be some good news out of Iran in terms of moving toward a more civilized condition?
Well, I know what's going on there. But first of all, let me say this. President Trump's move to end the American obligations of the Iran nuclear deal was a tremendous step. It was a tremendously courageous step and a correct move because he understood and understands, as Winston Churchill did. We were talking before about World War II, and as Roosevelt eventually came to understand, that when evil is confronting you, you need to stand up and you need to take a stand. So that's what President Trump has done. You know, and one of my purposes for writing the book, Trump and the Jews, by the way, I should point out, is that I wanted people to understand that President Trump has been the best president for the Jewish people, the best president strengthening that bond between the Jewish people, between Israel and the United States since Harry Truman.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get the credit for it that he deserves. And I believe that it needs to be pointed out from the moving of the American embassy to Jerusalem and the breaking off of the Iran nuclear deal and the reimposing of sanctions on the Ayatollahs in Iran. Those are bold moves, and those are by a bold leader. And when you strengthen the relationship between Israel and the United States, you're strengthening not just Israel. You're not just helping Israel. And I'm not even talking about the intelligence that Israel provides to America as a bastion of freedom in the Middle East. But I'm talking about the values that connect our two countries. And the United States, which was that was built on the eternal values of Judeo-Christian civilization. And, you know, it's become politically incorrect to talk about Judeo-Christian civilization these days because, of course, we're supposed to say that all civilizations are equal, you know, in the age of globalism.
That's absurd, yeah.
But the fact is that President Trump has wisely recognized that, and putting an end to that Iran nuclear deal was a bold move, and the reimposing of sanctions is causing havoc in Iran, internal havoc. And there was a lot of opposition, a lot of rebellion going on in Iran, and hopefully that will lead to a change in policy. If it doesn't, then it will at least weaken the regime in Iran and make it easier once we get to the point of direct conflict.
Your book, to bring that up here, is Trump and the Jews. And I totally agree with you. I mean, it's an objective observation that he's been the best president for Israel and for the Jews since Truman. And yet you still have these hard-bitten old Jewish establishment types in the United States who are at the forefront of his enemies. They're the ones who are openly part of this cabal, what President Trump calls the deep state, and I think quite accurately, that not only want to stop him, but they want to take him out of office. They want to make sure the American people don't wake up to what he represents, which is, as you say, Judeo-Christian values, conservative values, values of freedom and ownership and prosperity and faith in God. Why is it that the Jews continue to be so implacably opposed to Trump, and how do they reconcile that with our faith?
Yeah. Well, let me explain it in a way so people really understand, because I've been asked that question for years, and I decided finally, in writing Trump and the Jews, I decided I wanted to really explain it in a serious way. So the American Jewish community was mainly built in the early part of the 20th century, when Jews came in droves by the millions to the United States, mostly from Eastern Europe. They came in poverty. They mostly came with a strong connection to their faith and their families, very strong traditional family values and faith values. And American Jews came to America only wanting to work hard and be true Americans, to build and contribute, and they worked enormously long hours in sweatshops in the Lower East Side of New York City, of Manhattan, and but they didn't look at their poverty and a lot of the discrimination. There was discrimination against the Jews when they came to America in the early 20th century, but they didn't look at that discrimination as a cause. They didn't look at it as an excuse for days of rage, as it's become known in America. Certain segments of the American population, the Al Sharptons and people like that. They said to their children, you're going to go to school, you're going to work hard, you're going to learn hard, and you're going to succeed. And guess what? The American Jews in the sweatshops soon became the managers and the owners, but it was all a result of hard work. It wasn't a result of anything that was given to them.
Right.
And so the Jews eventually, through the decades, became possibly the most successful group in America in terms of financially, professionally. But the bottom line is that in order to achieve a lot of that success, they threw off their Judaic heritage and threw it to the side. They abandoned the conservative values that are integral with Judaism. And if anyone, if the Chuck Schumers and the Dianne Feinsteins want to debate me on this, I'm happy to do so. But
no, I think that you make a very good thesis. I mean, they threw off their Judaism and they embraced ideas that would be quite anathema to the development of other people. I mean, in the empowerment of individuals who want to achieve. David Rubin, how can people get your book, and where can they find out more information about you?
Well, the first step is to just go on Amazon.com and type in Trump and the Jews.
Very good.
And they can get the book that way, and they can read it over and learn from it. And
excellent.
And then they can go to the website davidrubinisrael.com, where they can find out about all my other books and find out about what I'm involved in. Basically, I wear two hats, Chuck. I don't know if you know. There is the hat that tries to spread some truth out there about Israel, the Middle East, and Judeo-Christian civilization under attack, and there is the other hat, which arose from a terrorist attack when my 3-year-old son and I were wounded by Islamic terrorists, and I established the Shiloh, or Shiloh as Americans would call it, Israel Children's Fund, to heal the trauma of the terror victim children and to restore some of the lost innocence of childhood for them. So you can get that information through the davidrubinisrael.com website, or they can go directly to ShilohIsraelChildren.org. That's Shiloh, SHILOH, IsraelChildren.org. They could find out about the Children's Fund there, and they can also go to davidrubinisrael.com, and they can get information about my books. and they could also get to the link on Amazon.com and Trump and the Jews and any of my other books.
Very good, David. And I'll put a link to that on the archive of the show. And I appreciate it. You've also written a very good book proposing, it's a rather novel idea, the means to a road to citizenship for Palestinian Arabs, which I think is a very interesting proposal. And David Rubin, I want to thank you for joining me this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Chuck. It was good to be with you.
Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. And I'll send you a link, David.